What was it like waking up Sunday morning and realizing it was season was over?
I think we knew in Calgary our season was over, and we responded really well in our last home game. That's what we talked about. It's not quite honest. When you're the defending champion, what's the difference if you lose in the first? You'd be asking the very same question if it was the first round, second round, or third round, wouldn't you? So that's how you feel. You feel, and I said it the other day, and those are my feelings. It's incomplete because when you won it, then you want to try and do that again. And that's what we started doing yesterday.
Do you anticipate all your systems coming back?
Yep. Yep. All our coaches are under contract, and yeah.
So that's the same feeling losing in the Western Conference Finals as waking up not making it.
It's not bad. It's not a. I don't. I'm already looking forward to. We haven't had. This team hasn't had any recovery time, coaches, players, and we're going to get that. You're going to get a full summer of. You look at all the young players in here that, for sure, can be better players. You look at from Kopi's age group back down, and you look at the star factor in that group. Those guys haven't had any time, and you think they got some skill development to work. They haven't had opportunity to do any of that. They haven't had an opportunity to train properly, so it should make them better. I look at points of our season this year where you know the players so well, and you trust them so much with what they bring in terms of their work and their effort and all that, and that's never a question. But there's times where they couldn't give you anymore. You looked at them, you knew they'd given you all they had. So emotionally, whether it was emotionally or physically, and so you know what? Now they're gonna when you break it out, when you're not a playoff team or when you're a team that loses in the first round, second round, third round, everything is 2 weeks when you look at it, right? So that's 2 weeks of hard activity, and then the recovery part of it. Well, we haven't had that. We've had 40 or 50 days of actually training. So now a lot of these young guys are going to get 11 or 12 weeks of it.
Darryl then mentioned in talking about that recovery time, is it almost better in some ways not to make it than to have to play 2 rounds?
No, obviously you'd rather make it because I've said this a lot. You guys have heard it a lot. It's hard to make the playoffs, and that's the way that you can win the Stanley Cup, is to make the playoffs in today's game, and the game has changed because of the way the divisions are set up. So,
but I just meant from the recovery, the standpoint of recovery.
No, I mean if you look at it, where there's an equation in there, meaning how much time they need off, and then when they can start training. And I think the biggest advantage you're going to have this year is the guys can get on the ice early. I didn't think we've planned training camps still around recovery almost, and they've done a really good job of it. If you look at our 3 regular seasons since when we went to finals, lost in the conference finals, and went to finals again, we've done a really good job in terms of our managing that and getting off to good starts. But there was always times during that season where and this year you could see it. You could in January, if you go October, November, December, that's a 100-point clip. You go January and you drop off, and I think what it is, like your record's like 3, 4, and 4 maybe, something like that. That's where it hit the wall. And then you look at February, March, April, as good as that's pushing Anaheim for the division. So
Darryl, do you think
we'll be good.
Advantageous for the likes of Tyler, Jake, Alec for Team USA?
I think, quite honest, personally, any of the young players that get asked that haven't been in that, obviously ever got that situation before, World Championships or Olympics, it's a stepping stone to someday playing the Olympics. I think that there's several players not in both our North American countries, and obviously was there Kopi Gabby,
Slovakia.
Kopi Gabby, depending on where Andre was in terms of, but it's great. I mean, that's something that's done in the middle of May. So I think that opportunity won't come along for players in this organization very often. So that's what I think.
You go to the
That's
derby?
not what, doesn't mean that's what the player thinks
Right.
or what,
Oh, yeah,
or
yeah.
what
Especially-
management thinks, but that's how I feel about
Especially
it.
today when they're,
I think if they get the opportunity, they should. Guys that never went, I could see the guys that played in the Olympics last year and played in the finals. I don't think that they would be emotionally into that at all. But the young guys, I think, should, could, would.
Darryl, decision that's more of a Dean question, but the fact that there may be some key guys that may not be back next year, have you given that any thought?
Well, who are they and who would that be?
Well, you've got guys like Stoll and Justin who are unrestricted, and guys that have been integral parts of this team.
If they're here, my job as head coach is to push them, and if they're somewhere else, I cheer for them. Same thing when we won. There's got nothing to do with not making the playoffs. How I feel about those guys. It's part of a big family that won 2 championships. Unfortunately, sometimes family has to go somewhere else to continue their careers. So, really, I don't have no. If there's a way for all our players to be back, I'd want them all to be back. That's the way I feel.
A guy like Jarrett, where's his biggest contribution? Is it in the room, on the bench? Where does he make his
I
biggest?
think all of the above. I don't think that's changed. His role hasn't changed one bit since we won our first championship here. He may have had a different role prior to that, or in Edmonton, but his role here was and doesn't change. It's, guys get older and their roles change and minutes change and all that. That's natural. You don't get retirement contracts no more. There's a salary cap and there's good teams and the league's too close. But I think with Stoli, you're looking at, Stoli missed all training camp. Say what you want. He didn't. Our goal in this last training camp was to get him in one game. So you think with the last few years in terms of toll on him, he had hip surgery and then he has the medical issues. So, it wasn't an easy year for Jared by any means. And then he got hurt again late. So, those guys are all the same to me. You can only have 23, and I wouldn't bother me if it was the same 23.
Just spoke to Dustin Brown, and he said the incident in Tampa Bay was blown out of proportion by the media. Is that something that happens for any team?
Well, quite honest, John, if you're asking that question, then you should go to the New York Post because you don't know much about sports, and you don't know much about locker rooms, and the biggest part of anything that in terms of players having meetings or coaches and players having meetings, the biggest thing is keeping the media out of those meetings. And if you look at where we were, and that's not being, if you look at where we were on that trip, that was part of us making a movie for the NHL. And we talked about that, about being a little too open. I think the guys that follow us every day and that understand it would have a pretty good handle, get a pretty good handle on all that.
As a former player, I guess that stuff like that does happen more than us as media or even fans would know. I mean,
that's awesome that it does. It should happen. I mean, do you have family?
yeah.
So once in a while, do you close the door and talk to your family?
The communication's sometimes not great, but yes, we do.
But it does. Or private.
that's for another day.
Or private. Or sometimes veteran players by themselves, or sometimes veteran players with younger players. I did it as a captain. I did it as a coach. I did it as a general manager. And I totally get it. Totally understand that. And when you have a group that's used to being so successful, and that's why they're so successful.
growing up with all those brothers too. So I mean, it's part and parcel of.
Part and parcel of somebody from New York that doesn't know what they're talking about and giving to somebody else who doesn't know what they're talking about, and then it takes somebody who knows what they're talking about, either a player or coach, to explain to those people so they understand, they know what they shouldn't have said.
I'm sure there have been some good stories with Pulley back in the day.
He might have walked you in. But it's totally quite silly that people bring up. We wouldn't have made the, if we had made the playoffs, and they'd have been talking about how we're going to lose in the first round. The same people talk about that stuff are the same people that want people to, or teams or players not to do well.